This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carannante.
Welcome to the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carannante. Yankees going to add in the infield department soon. We're getting impatient or we're resigned to reality. Either way, no matter what bucket you live in, it's February 3rd, in fact. Spring training in like a week and a half. Pitchers and catchers come first. Infielders aren't pitchers or catchers, so that's helpful. But the Yankees still got to make some moves. So who's still available? What are they saying? How comfortable are they with the incumbent options? Plus, a familiar pitcher has joined us. Carlos Carrasco is a New York Yankee. We'll talk about it. Marcus Stroman is also a New York Yankee right now. Jack Flaherty is not. Would you rather have him at that contract instead of Stroman? I know you would, Thomas Carannante. So we'll talk about it a little bit. And rest in peace to one of the men who was behind the Yankees dynasty. We'll touch on him with a brief tribute at the end of the show. In 2 o'clock Eastern on a Monday. We're here every Monday, every Thursday, and on all podcast platforms if that's something you do as well. So subscribe to us there. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Thomas Carannante. At least Brian Cashman's never going to do anything as dumb as trading Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis, which honestly feels like if the Yankees had traded Juan Soto last June for some reason.
No, because that would mean you would have to trade something of value, which Brian Cashman refuses to do.
It would be a risk. It would be taking a risk. Of
This would, if he made a deal like that, he would disappear on the spot. He would just completely evaporate, and the hat would just end up on the ground, and that would be Brian Cashman if he decided to do an impact deal like that. But insane what's going on in the NBA, how that's happening. I agree. It would be the equivalent of, was Doncic in the last year of his contract? Like, what does his contract look like?
It's a year and a half left, but he was eligible for a super max, and the NBA makes no sense. So if he'd stayed with his own team, the Mavericks, he would have been eligible for like $358 million extension. Yeah. And now that he's gone, he can make like $220 million, which honestly, you should be allowed to sue for that. Like, he shouldn't be allowed to do that. He's your best. You didn't do anything wrong. He's your best player. He's a little doughy. He's a little pudgy. He's not in game shape. Whatever. I mean, you stole $150 million from this man.
Yeah, it's wild. I don't know. Yeah, I guess the equivalent would be opting to trade Juan Soto and not paying him $765 million. I don't know. We need a lopsided MLB trade like that so we can start talking about something. We're sitting here waiting for Marcus Stroman to get dealt. There's all these free agents remaining on the board, and we believe that there probably needs to be a trade or two that happens before a team either clears payroll space or roster spot for some of these people. But the Yankees have a couple of issues to deal with. But first and foremost, I guess, Carlos Carrasco is here as of 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, as John Heyman said, hashtag cookie. So hashtag cookie to you as well. Look, this is not going to be a high impact signing. It's an example of, familiar name, headline grabber, but it's not like, I don't think we're going to be talking about Carlos Carrasco. His birthday is March 21st. I don't know what the over-under is on when we're going to be thinking about him again.
38 years old.
Before or after his birthday, he turns 38 on March 21st. Look, it's first of all, it's weird that they've now brought in Corey Kluber and Danny Salazar on a forgotten minor league deal, and now Carlos Carrasco. So all these old guardians are again New York Yankees. Carrasco is one of baseball's good guys, diagnosed with cancer in the middle of 2019, fought back and won the Roberto Clemente Award that year after missing several months. It still managed to come back and pitch that season. And then in 2020, 1 year removed, 12 starts, 68 innings, 82 Ks, 2.91 ERA in the shortened season. Signed a 3-year deal with the Mets. One very good year in 2022. Terrible years in 2021 and 23, sandwiching that delicious Oreo cream in the middle, and then went back to Cleveland last year, made 21 starts, but only made it 103 and 2/3 innings, 5.64 ERA. I am kind of shocked that the Guardians, a team built on like pitching, speed, defense, gave that many starts to that version of Carrasco. And I kind of don't remember that, even though that team won the AL Central and we faced them in the ALCS. But I think at this juncture, smart to sign people like Carlos Carrasco to minor league deals, bring them in for spring training. Mentorship is nice. Be able to, get some alone time with some people who might need his intervention and could be, learn about his arsenal and could get some good advice from Carrasco. But I mean, Corey Kluber ended up being worth more than that, but not by much. He threw a weird no-hitter. We don't have a lot of AAA depth. So if Carlos Carrasco is willing to stick around the whole year and play in Scranton, then he joins the Will Warren bucket and, 7th or 8th starter. I guess more appealing than like Asher Wojciechowski or whoever he had coming up a couple of years ago to come do that. But other than name brand and the value of, a known commodity, I don't think it's very likely that Carlos Carrasco will soak up many innings this year or get a chance to. And I bet we find out about an opt-out at some point. Otherwise, he should just hang out in Scranton as a glorified member of the coaching staff. And that's very nice, but I don't think we'll see him too much.
Yeah. Looked at his Baseball Savant page just for fun. Mostly blue all over. And this is based on last year's 21 start stint with Cleveland. So that's not a terrible sample size. It was 103 2/3 innings, whatever. Not a bad whip for someone who's been struggling. I mean, like 1.40, fine. A 37-year-old who's like kind of falling off. Chase rate in the 79th percentile, very bizarre. Ground ball rate in the 69th percentile. So maybe there's something here that can be tweaked to make him effective for, 10 starts when they need the help, or some role with erasing innings in the bullpen when they don't want to burn the more important arms. But yeah, I mean, the larger picture does not look great here. Minus 2.5 WAR over the last 2 seasons and minus 2.1 over the last 4 seasons. So clearly on a poor trajectory. And if honestly there was any place for him to resurrect himself, it would have been Cleveland last year. And it was almost equally as bad as his 2023 season with the Mets. We'll see what they can do. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's dumb. You need bodies. You would like a veteran maybe at AAA, helping mentor younger pitchers. You need a guy who knows how to pitch at the major league level, even if it's like, here's an honest question. Would you rather see Carlos Carrasco in mop-up duty or Will Warren? It feels like a coin flip, and I'd rather maybe take more time for Will Warren to develop instead of seeing him come up randomly to take on a spot start where he's not qualified, or take on 3 relief innings where he's in garbage time. It doesn't feel like the right moment for him. Maybe this is part of the solution. I don't know, but battle-tested veteran. He's had success in this league. Insight here feels like it's the play more than anything, but not going to hold my breath. The Yankees still have other moves to make that we should probably talk about as well. Infield still an issue. No solution at well, they have a solution at second base, right? It's Jazz Chisholm. But there's been no clarity there. Aaron Boone has said this offseason that he would like to keep Jazz Chisholm on the infield dirt. Thanks. That's great. So we're looking at a situation, or we've been looking at a situation. We are exhausted by looking at a situation of figuring out who is going to play third base. And Aaron Boone had some comments on DJ LeMahieu recently that we can get into quickly, but the Yankees have seen a couple of guys come off the board over the last few days, over the last few weeks, that would have potentially been fits and would have been cost effective. And the Yankees, again, still have enough spending threshold under that $301 million mark, Steve Cohen tax land, that they could have made them, and they opted not to. Alex Bregman remains out there. There has been no information of the Yankees submitting an offer or remaining interested. I think the last we got was that obviously the Astros have their remaining offer on the table, the original one that Bregman rejected. The Tigers have a 5 or 6 year offer on the table, and the Red Sox have a 4-year offer on the table. And there's been essentially no headway made. So platoon of DJ LeMahieu and Oswaldo Cabrera, or a spring training battle between those two, is looking like the reality. As of right now, things can change. Not going to be surprised if maybe the Yankees trade Stroman, find some team to take on the rest of his money, and then use that leftover money to sign Bregman, and they could probably still remain under the threshold if they do it, if they structure the deal properly. But people are reporting to spring training soon. We know how this works. The later you wait, the later these guys don't have a home, the later that they take to start training, it's usually bad news. So if you're going to make a considerable investment in a player, you better do it now. You better do it soon. I know where you stand on a couple of these things, but I am now I don't care. What am I going to do? I'm going to lose sleep over third base.
Yes.
Every year they go into the season without one or two positions on lockdown. This is not a surprise at this point. It's every year. I'm
not saying it should be a surprise, but I'm saying it's crazy that we just accept, like, they're going to forget to fill out a couple of positions. They're not going to do it. I mean, Jorge Polanco, certainly not my preferred choice, but given the options available at this moment, I was like, yeah, I can live with that. Like, I can believe that he was hampered by an injury that required surgery to resolve it last year. He's been like a 110, 115 OPS plus guy in the past, playing with the short porch. I'm sure he's only going to cost like $8 million. Like, yeah, I can get down with that. And then he costs $7 million, goes back to the Mariners, where everybody agreed that the ballpark fucked him up last year. And that, like, it was a combination of being injured and poor stadium fit. And he was like, I think I'll take that bad stadium fit in an affordable contract. And so, like, all right. So when the Yankees are telling you they're not going to do anything until Marcus Stroman is traded, or he's holding up their pursuits, or they don't want to work with more dollars than they plan to, then they're really not kidding, because that was $7 million. And we've ranted in the past about, oh, you got to get Tim Hill in here. You don't have any lefties in the bullpen. Arguably a bigger need than third base, which is wild to say. But, like, at least you have Oswaldo Cabrera, and there's a chance Oswald Peraza is good. Like, not a good chance of that happening, but that is a prospect that people have been begging for them to find room for. And now that they have, everyone's like, not like that. And DJ LeMahieu is obviously here. We're stuck with him. He's going to be playing or competing whether you want him to or not. So I think third base is a vacancy and an obvious upgrade opportunity, but they have three names that they could throw out there. I don't think they should. And I think using Cabrera as a rotating utility option is the best idea, best fit, but at least they have three names. They don't have a lefty reliever. And Tim Hill's still just hanging out on the market. And Andrew Chafin's still just hanging out on the market. And Brooks Raley's still just hanging out on the market. And those are $3, $4, $5 million players a year maximum. And they're not making the plunge there either. So, yeah, when they say Stroman's holding us back, or when they say we're looking to, make some budgetary changes, they're not kidding, because they've got two clear vacancies and haven't been moving to address them at all. And fans, Brian Cashman and the Yankees don't do a fan fest. They should, but they don't. The Phillies don't. Some teams just don't. But the Dodgers invited the whole team to the stadium the other day to just gloat and laugh and smile and giggle. So good for them. But the Yankees don't do a fan fest, but they have this Pinstripe Pride event run by a proprietor on a weekend where they invite just 40 legends back for autograph signings. Some current players, like Michael Kay, was signing autographs. Cashman was signing autographs. And it seemed like one fan reported that he was going to ask him about third base, and then the guy in front of him did anyway, which makes me think that like 50 weird guys asked Brian Cashman about third base this weekend. And Cashman said they were comfortable using the internal options if they had to, but they're waiting for the prices to drop. That would indicate to me not terribly comfortable with the internal options, don't want to use them, and are waiting for what prices to drop. Probably not Brendan Rodgers and Paul DeJong and the guys whose prices are already in the dirt. Probably trade prices, like Nolan Arenado, like Luis Arraez. I can't believe that the Cardinals haven't gotten desperate with Arenado yet, who isn't an ideal fit for the Yankees ballpark, to say the least, and doesn't seem to be aging terribly well, and is battling recurring back issues. But league average offense, which he provided last year, would obviously be an upgrade over what they have in-house. And the Cardinals and John Mozeliak said that trading Arenado is their plan A, B, and C a couple weeks ago on January 18th, I believe. It's February 3rd. Spring training starts in a couple of days. If that was your plan A, B, and C, and you're not even close to executing it, do you get desperate? Do you start thinking about Stroman and Will Warren for Arenado, or the kind of deal that they would have laughed at in December but might have to accept now? I think it was nice to see Cashman say that they're waiting for prices to drop, even though it indicated that they have a price they're not comfortable with, and and that shouldn't be the case. But we know that it is. The fact that they're monitoring the market is better than them. It's better than Cashman talking up LeMahieu to this fan and making him throw a fountain pen at him at the autograph signing. But Aaron Boone definitely was closer to the hyping up LeMahieu corner of business.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the manager is not going to throw his player under the bus. We know, I guess, how contentious this whole thing might have been if we're to believe the reporting about the Yankees star players stopping the team from DFAing him last season. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to see him go out in that manner. And we know a lot of what the Yankees do is lip service, and someone like Aaron Boone constantly backs his players, with the exception of, I guess, Gleyber Torres, who's the only guy who's held accountable for anything. And then even that took, 4 years to happen. So at this event, asked about third base, asked about what's going to happen, and you have these scenarios. You have Oswaldo Cabrera, you have Oswald Peraza, you have DJ LeMahieu. And then Boone decided to speak more on LeMahieu and said, I think a lot of people are counting out DJ. It wasn't long ago when DJ was one of the best hitters in the American League. I just want to remind people that he hasn't been because he's not healthy. With health, I think there's that great hitter still in there a little bit. I mean, a little bit. So yeah, a little bit. You're banking on a little bit of a guy remaining to fill a full-time position, number one.
The old Robert De Niro, a little bit, good hitter, a little bit of a good hitter.
Number two, it's like the whole thing is no Yankees fan is out there being like, DJ LeMahieu sucks and is a bad baseball player. Every Yankee fan is out there saying, this guy has been injured for 4 straight years. He is now entering his age 36 season, coming off the year where he's been the most injured. He played in 67 games last year, missed the most time he's had since, I think, 2013 or something like that in terms of games played. So it has nothing to do with DJ LeMahieu's talent and previous track record. It's that the last 4 years, he has not appeared in a single playoff game. He's averaged about 1 WAR per season over those 4 years, and it's mostly been because of his defense. He won the utility Gold Glove back in 2022, and his defensive versatility on the whole has kept him in that plus WAR conversation, because his power has disappeared, his run driving abilities have disappeared, his contact has disappeared, and even his on base, like it's not. He used to walk a ton. He hasn't walked a lot. So the issue here is health, and the problem is that the Yankees so often just rely on guys to bounce back from health issues and think that that's something that's reasonable to forecast into a projection. And it's not, especially when you're getting older, especially when you're at the tail end of your career. DJ LeMahieu, his career is essentially over. Position players, especially guys who play multiple positions, don't last very long. And he's already been in the league for 14 years. So like, how much time does he realistically have? Even if he were healthy, his downward trajectory probably would have started 2 years ago, just based on how the age curve works in that department. So I understand that you respect the player because of his past accomplishments and because he was an MVP candidate in 2019 and 2020. But, people would rebut and say 2019 was the juice ball. And it was. Everybody knew that. That was another year of mass Gleyber Torres success that we've never seen again. And 2020 was 60 games, and LeMahieu played in 50 of them. So I know he led the league in all those categories, but it's a third of a season. And again, the accomplishments didn't matter because the Yankees got bounced in the ALDS, and it was embarrassing. So, like, I get that DJ LeMahieu was once upon a time an integral member of this team, a very important table setter for the top of this lineup, a bargain contract when they signed him to a 2-year, $24 million deal after the 2018 season. But like, those days are so far gone, man. And it is very pertinent to note that, again, has not appeared in a postseason game in 4 years. The Yankees missed one of those years. I understand that. But to play in 0 since 2020 is objectively crazy. And to think that there's a shot for him to improve health-wise as he gets older and as he's had various ailments, it's not just like one thing where it's like, oh man, he has a back issue. Like, it's a new thing every year. It's a foot injury. It's I think he had a calf. He had the hernia issue. He had a different foot issue. So it's just recurring things that are holding him back. And it's very obvious that the lack of consistent playing time and the after effects of whatever health issues he's been dealing with are drastically killing his abilities. So why are we sitting here pretending like he can contribute? Like, does he need to be DFA'd? Okay, maybe we can have that conversation and say no. Like, there's value in DJ LeMahieu being the last guy on the bench, helping out the younger players, coming in a pinch when the team needs some versatility, someone needs a day of rest, like, playing 85-ish games and fill in because everybody can't play every single day. We know that, but like, to have him in the mix for a starting role after what you just saw for 4 years, regardless of health, it's just crazy. And it again is because the Yankees are drawing a line in the sand with their their self-imposed payroll restrictions, and they're going with what they have, and this is what they do. And it's the fringe areas of the roster, or the excess areas where you can improve as a big market team. Like, sure, would this be a problem for a lot of other teams to be like, shit, we have a $50 million player on the payroll. We just have to use him. Like, we have no choice. We are the Tampa Bay Rays. It is what it is. Like, no, you're the Yankees, and we understand that you don't need to go into the 350 to 375 payroll range. But when you're looking at a player who is completely ineffective now, and who carries that salary and is ostensibly going to fill in at a very important position at third base, you have to cut your losses and go on and stop trying to peddle a different story to the media. And in the spirit of optimism, like, cool, yeah, like, everyone would love to see a DJ LeMahieu bounce back. It would be awesome. But what are the odds of that? And why would you factor that into a potential starting role on a team with championship aspirations next year? It's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm going to say nice things about DJ LeMahieu now, which I think maybe buck the expectations, but he was a great Yankee. Everybody knows that. Nobody's doubting if he had greatness in him at any point. He is someone I wanted re-signed when he hit free agency after 2020, and I'm glad they got that done. Wish it was a 5-year deal instead of a 6-year deal. We'd be in less of a trouble spot now. I also don't even really mind the players stepping up and saying, don't DFA him and embarrass him in early September or whenever they plan to DFA him for Jason Dominguez. Because like we said, the Yankees should be able to absorb $15 million for the last guy on the bench and someone who's meant so much to this team and this roster over the years. You could put him on the 60-day IL and open up a roster spot in the same way. Like, if you don't want him on the active roster, and they eventually did put him on the injured list and say he's got this hip thing, he might be back for the playoffs, he might not. It's also definitely a lie. We're making it up right now. He doesn't have a hip thing. Like, you could have done that and said it's a season ender instead of saying, we'll see if he can work his way back. He's taking ground balls or whatever. You don't want to embarrass him. You could just say, hey, this hip thing is pretty bad. It's got a flare up. He's not going to be back this year. We're going to clear up a roster spot by putting him on the IL for 60 days. You could have done that. So I don't mind Aaron Judge or Anthony Rizzo or whoever it was trying to save his bacon last year. And they probably said something like, you're the freaking Yankees. You can afford $15 million a year. And Hal was probably gobsmacked being like, and it's true. They can. So look, I can definitely see the side of DFAing him. But I can also see the side where he's gone through a lot of ups and downs with this team. They did not want him unceremoniously cut out when there were alternate paths to take care of that problem. And ultimately, the Yankees did. Also, he's never been as bad as he was in 2024. So people riding LeMahieu as DJ LeGround out the last couple of years, it's because of the high expectations we had for him and the fact that he was the team MVP in 2019 and 2020, arguably. He put up 3.6 BWAR in 2022 and had a 110 OPS plus. He had a 96 OPS plus below average, but barely in 2023 and had a positive 1.3 BWAR. Now, he was not the same guy. No. And like you said, he has not finished a season active and healthy and in the playoffs. He is always out. He missed the 2021 wild card game. He missed previous runs. And last year, he was supposedly entering the season healthy after suffering from a toe issue, and he banged a ball off his foot in spring training and then went on to have an abominable year, subtracting 1.6 WAR, hitting 204 with a 527 OPS. That basically means a home run is out of the question, except for he did hit that grand slam in Philadelphia for whatever reason. And he also walked off the Blue Jays in extra innings at home in August when I was allowed to convince myself, hey, maybe he's turning the tide. Author's note, he was not. The tide never got turned. He was terrible. So the issue is not retaining DJ LeMahieu and hoping that last year was the biggest outlier of all time and that he really messed up his foot in spring training, but now it's back in business and he doesn't have to get into a rhythm anymore. The issue is considering him as a possible starter. That is absurd. That is where I draw the line. He's on the roster. He's making $15 million. They can afford it. There is a chance he gets back to being a 1 to 2 WAR guy if he's able to overcome whatever held him back last year. There's also a chance that he's done, that it never comes back, that he messed up his foot beyond repair, or that the foot injury led to discomfort in his legs, which led to calf strain, weakening hamstrings, messed up swing, what have you. It's more likely that he never comes back than he does. I don't have an issue leaving him on the bench. I don't have an issue if the difficult decision has to be made to do it with grace and to say in the middle of May, hey, this didn't work out. Now we got to DFA you like they did to Aaron Hicks. That's the reality of baseball. Maybe if the players have been given a second chance and they see LeMahieu do the same things he did last year, this year, they'll understand, okay, we tried, but this is a business. Now we got to give this up. And there's a chance he bounces back. I find it more likely than not that he won't, but hey, whatever. The egregious thing is to even act as if there's a chance he could be your opening day third baseman, because there shouldn't be. Even if he goes off in spring training, he should be held in a reserve role. So I don't have an issue with him staying on the roster. I don't even have a problem with them mentioning him in the mix.
Yeah.
Because he's on the roster and you have to be nice, but you also have to be doing work behind the scenes to replace him.
Yeah. And that's the issue. Again, nobody, it would suck to see DJ LeMahieu DFA'd. It objectively would. Fans would, you'd obviously sit there and be like, okay, like, yeah, it was necessary, but it doesn't feel right. You're not celebrating. No one's celebrating that. Nobody is feeling jovial after that. Mm-hmm. But even when you look at his numbers from 2022, like 3.6 WAR, I would love for somebody to tell me how 261 average and a 734 OPS equates to 2.5 WAR. Mm-hmm. That's insane. Offensive WAR, that's insane. He hit 12 home runs and drove in 46 batters. That's like I don't even know what that would translate to, but 2.5 WAR, and then he gets an additional, or it was 2.6 WAR, and he has an additional 1 defensive WAR. So again, I don't know how this works, but we all watched DJ LeMahieu in 2022, right? You don't remember that being an exceptional season for him. You don't remember being like, oh, this guy's a difference maker. This is like changing the complexion of the roster. You're like, yeah, no, this is a valuable guy. He's playing a multitude of positions. He's putting bat on ball. He's doing much better than he did the prior year when he played in 150 games and only logged a 1.5 WAR. And look, it is what it is. Average position players log, anywhere between 1.5 and 2 WARs. DJ LeMahieu was not re-signed to be an average position player, and he's been below average, again, over the last 4 years at 1.2. So keep him on the team, sure. Give him reps, sure. Starting player, getting 140-plus games and 500 plate appearances, no one is signing up for that. It would just be more malpractice by what this team has been doing, and it would play a role in holding them back to getting further to where they need to be with a new look roster post Juan Soto era. But speaking of that, players on this roster that are probably not going to be part of 2025, Marcus Stroman, we keep talking about him. We're trying not to, guys. We're really trying not to. This is an exhaustive conversation.
You want to talk about weird Aaron Boone comments, though. He's doing what he has to do to come to defense of his players and to make things seem normal, even when there's definitely stuff going on below the surface. But his Stroman comments bordered on parody, where he was like, I actually talk to Stroman all the time. I think he might be our most important pitcher next year. No, there's no world where he's your most important pitcher. There's a world where he matters, but there's no world where he's your most important pitcher. And then someone asked him about Stroman deleting his entire Instagram and unfollowing the Yankees. And Boone was like, that's actually a kind of thing that he does for a cleansing every year. It's just like this purge that he does. And I actually do believe that Marcus Stroman does something weird to his social media every single year, but unfollowing the Yankees is different. That is not just like hey, got to get out that, my chakras are off. I got to get the demons out. Like if the Yankees throw your demons, then that's not really great for the operational relationship heading into 2025. So I get that maybe it's just a thing he does, but if he's like, I got to get the toxins out, and I consider the Yankees to be one of my toxins, it's like, you should not come back.
No. And it's now become one of those conversations where it's when, not if, because at this point, if he's been mentioned in trade rumors this often and word's out, I don't think he'll stand for wanting to come back after enduring an offseason like that. And I wouldn't either, honestly. I mean, most people wouldn't. It borders on disrespect. Like the way that these things drag out, the way that these things leak, like it's happened with Gleyber Torres a million times. Like, did I think Gleyber Torres was an absolute commendable Yankee? Not really. But I don't think he was treated right either. If you're going to trade a player, either get the deal done or figure out a way to stop all the chatter from blowing up in the media. Like, you have to know better than that as an organization as big as the Yankees are. And it seems like this stuff repeats itself. But you look at Stroman's situation, and we could talk about the contract all we want, right? Was it a bad contract? Probably not. Was it the greatest contract? Absolutely not. Did the Yankees misread things? They absolutely did. And you have more proof of that. Last night, Jack Flaherty signs a 2-year deal for $35 million to return to the Tigers, and he gets an opt-out after the first year. And you look at his numbers and what he managed to accomplish in 2024. He had the second best season of his career. He won a World Series with the Dodgers and was a very important pitcher on that staff after all the injuries that they dealt with. And he was incredibly durable, only missed a couple of starts, and that was it. So, and not to mention entering his age 29 season. So he is essentially what you would say in his prime. And he's someone who somehow didn't get a deal beyond 2 years, who somehow got an AAV of $17.5 million. And you look at Stroman's previous year with the Cubs. Yes, he was an all-star, but he tailed off hard in the second half, almost finished with a 4 ERA, had some whip issues, and somehow lands a 3-year deal with the Yankees. And the Yankees pay a higher AAV, and they give him a vesting option for that 3rd year. And the Yankees overlook the fact that he has workload troubles, and they didn't manage it properly. They overlook the fact that he pitches to contact and needs a good defense behind him to succeed, and the Yankees don't have a good defense. And you look back on the fact that they tried to pay Blake Snell, and they drew a line and said, we're not going above $150 million. And it hamstrung them, and they scoffed at the idea of giving him 1 or 2 years at a super high AAV, again, because of payroll restrictions. And now they end up with a deal that they regret less than a year later with Stroman. So, like, how many times is this front office going to misread the market? That's really all I'm asking. Like, you mentioned it before, do I want Jack Flaherty over Marcus Stroman? I mean, if we're having the debate, I don't think there's a clear-cut answer, but would I rather have Jack Flaherty for 1 year with an option or Marcus Stroman for 2 years with a vesting option? I'd rather have Jack Flaherty, especially at his age and after what he just accomplished in a playoff run. Jack Flaherty is, again, 4 years. Stroman was entering his age 33 season last year, and the Yankees were risking giving him a 3-year deal. And Marcus Stroman had no other leverage on the market. There were no other teams willing to, at least based on what we were mining from reports and rumors, the market wasn't expansive. Nobody was there with, running to the front of the line with multi-year offers and 20 million AAVs. It just wasn't that. So the Yankees immediately pivot to him after Blake Snell asks for more money, and the Yankees think that that's insane because that's what they do. They squash a 6-year beef with Stroman in one conversation, and they pay him this money. And now they've recreated the beef with Stroman by essentially publicly regretting the deal after all of the things that were their fault. Again, I do not blame Marcus Stroman one bit for any of this. Marcus Stroman is who he is, right? And we knew that when he was coming in. Great depth starter, great veteran to have, great guy to have pitch in a potentially big game because we know he can handle the moment. Not a great guy to give you 32 starts. Not a great guy to shoulder the load in the second half. Not a great guy in terms of consistency and longevity with health. So you knew that was an issue. Not a great guy in limiting contact. So it is what it is. But once again, the Yankees made the wrong choice in free agency. They made the wrong choice with a player profile, and they made a wrong choice with a player personality, because you know that if you're bringing someone like Marcus Stroman on board, there can't be any nonsense with rumors or speculation and things like that. And you look at a team like the Tigers. I think the Tigers are awesome. I think on paper they are not an attractive free agency destination. They're just not. Like, no one's dying to go to Detroit. It just is what it is. And the fact that they waited out the market and they got a reunion with a player that they wanted just goes to show that, how do the Yankees botch this every single time? A premier destination, and they still don't get players who fit exactly what they need, or they don't manage them properly. So I don't think this is a Flaherty versus Stroman conversation. I think it's just once again, front office, what are you doing conversation, and why does this keep happening, and why do we have to keep talking about it?
I like that Tarek Skubal sort of went public with hey, I think he said at the BBWAA dinner, hey, if I don't have the ball, I want Jack Flaherty to have the ball. I'm not sure why he's still unsigned. And then the Tigers went out and got it done. So they may not have taken care of Skubal with an extension. They probably never will, because he's a Boris guy, but they've got their ace. And he's saying, go out and get this guy. We just had him. We loved him. He helped lead us into, first half of the season, brought us close enough that we were able to make a run for a playoff berth. And they said, yeah, he's still out there. We can get this done. He was comfortable in LA. He was comfortable here. Let's bring him back, make him comfortable again. The Yankees are always going to be connected to Flaherty too, because of their decision not to trade for him at last year's deadline. We don't know how close that got. We don't know how bad the medicals were. Apparently, look, Flaherty's velocity was down in LA. In the playoffs, it was really a grab bag. You never know what you're getting. No one wants to remember the beginning of Game 5 of the World Series for good reason. But the Yankees stomped on Flaherty in that game after he was great in Game 1. Stanton took him deep. But other than that, he almost got through 6 shutout against this lineup. And then they took him to task in his next start. He was a roller coaster. He was up and down. But that nobody's paying Flaherty to be their ace right now. They're paying him for a good, solid piece of rotation depth. And maybe he's a Stroman type where 130 innings, totally reasonable. 160 innings, not going to happen. So manage your innings properly, and maybe you give him a breather in the middle of the season so he's available for the end of it or whatever. And maybe the medicals are really concerning, because there's only one guaranteed year here and a maximum of 2. But it's a risk the Tigers were willing to take. It's a risk that the Dodgers were willing to take last year that the Yankees weren't. The Dodgers surrendered Tyron Lorenzo, who's like a top 100 prospect now, in exchange for him, and Trey Sweeney, who played down the stretch and was a starter in the postseason for Detroit. And they don't regret it, because they have a ring. So I'll take Jack Flaherty over Stroman at this point in time. Yes. And I say that as somebody who I believe that there's a role for Marcus Stroman on this team.
Correct.
I don't think he wants to play it. I don't think. Good news, Marcus. We're going to keep you. We understand. We're going to honor the deal. You're our number 6 starter. You're not in the rotation, but you can lengthen it sometimes. You're going to make 2 starts a month. You're going to finish this year around 110 innings. We're going to keep you fresh. I think he gives that the big old middle finger. I don't think he wants any part of that, but it's a role that makes some sense, and it's not really a role you can recruit Jack Flaherty for either. So I don't regret not signing Jack Flaherty this offseason, but the Yankees are stuck in a weird position with Stroman that they probably never should have been. And last year we were told about a week before they did it that it's someone they hadn't even considered and wouldn't consider. And then Stroman posted his baby photos, and we're like, I guess the Yankees signed him. And then the Yankees are like, yeah, we signed him. Let bygones be bygones. And it's like, all right. You gotta really be prepared to do the work here. If you want to make this signing work, you're guaranteeing him some things that he's going to be really angry about if you try to take them away from him later. You give him a vesting option for a reasonable number of innings, but then you're like, but when that year comes, we can stop giving him those innings. He's not going to like that. He's going to go out in a ball of fire. So that's supposed to be, a break glass in case of injury thing, but teams don't use it that way. Teams manipulate every contract stipulation that they give out. So you're signing Stroman knowing that either hey, look, best case scenario, hatchet is buried. He's just great this year. Maybe he starts to get tired around 150 innings, but hopefully we're where we need to be at that point. And worst case scenario, he's injured and then he's injured again and none of these things vest and then we can get out of this sooner than we thought. They almost got the best case scenario last year. He was pretty good for most of the first half of the season, and he was exceptional in May when they really needed him to be. And the rotation was a little bit unsettled, and we didn't know how long is this Luis Heel thing going to hold up? How long are we going to get what we're currently receiving out of Clark Schmidt? And it turned out not very much longer. He missed pretty much the whole summer. But Stroman on the road, 3.09 ERA last year in 13 starts. Stroman at home, 5.31 ERA. That'll skew things. First half had a 3.51 mark. You never really felt like you were watching him dominate, but representative numbers pretty good. 1.67 ERA in May. That's how we got there. But it crept over 5 in June, stayed over 5 in July, 4.56 in August, 8.80 in September when the wheels just completely fell off and he gave up 31 hits in 15 innings. So I'd rather not have him on this roster. I think he's got a role to play, but I don't think he wants to play it. And so we got to figure out, this is not just standard practice. My Instagram is gone and everyone knows I'm getting traded type of behavior. This is not just normal.
Again, everybody sees what's going on, and the Yankees are like, no. What do you mean? What do you mean? No, you guys are. It's like they're not saying we're stupid, but they're implying we're stupid.
They're weekend at Berniesing the Marcus Stroman contract. They're like putting sunglasses on him and being like, he actually did not die. He's like really enthusiastically waving at you. He can't wait to do a bullpen session. Meanwhile, he's like keeled over in a bucket of balls.
Again, it's something they do every year. There's a legitimate ongoing conversation about a certain topic, about concerns with the roster or a certain situation, and the Yankees are like, no, what are you talking about? And then we watch the situation gradually worsen over time, regardless. Name any scenario over the past 6 years. We could pick something out and tell you the Yankees tried to dissent it or tried to convince fans otherwise. And then it gets worse, and then it happens. And they're like, yeah, didn't see that coming. And everyone else is like, well, we did. So what about us? Boring.
I would love, it would be so good to be able to do a show that's like, oh my God, breaking news, infielder added, or breaking news, Marcus Stroman sent to better place. But we can't do that for now. We just have to talk about the stasis mode. Even the rumors about infielders are fake now, like entirely fake. There was a report over the weekend that went viral that was like, the Yankees are interested now in Yoel Moncada and Kiké Hernández. And everybody had their thoughts on whether those were good fits or how much they should pay for those guys or strong potential additions. And then it turned out in the body of the article, it was like the Yankees asked for Moncada's medicals months ago and then never re-engaged. Okay, it doesn't sound like they're interested. Yeah. And then Kiké, it was like the Dodgers, like Kiké, the Yankees touched base on last year. Maybe he could be a fit. But most seem to assume that the Dodgers are just waiting until people report to spring training so they can open up 60-day IL, put people on the 60-day IL and open up roster spots that way for them to bring Kiké back. Dodger fans chanted for Kiké at Dodgers Fest this weekend. Apparently joining Mets fans hand in hand in the, we got everything this offseason, but we're still deeply unsatisfied because of this one guy. Like, fans just love to complain. Like, the Dodgers have signed 12 people and they still go to FanFest not to celebrate, but to be like, bring back that $2 million guy. And they're going to get him. So he's not an infield option for the Yankees. But that was this weekend's rumors. They're just throwing names out there. And then in the body being like, the Yankees aren't interested, nor have they talked to those people. But they technically do play infield, so we do have to write about them. We would love news. We don't have news. And that's why we're doing podcasts about Marcus Stroman twice a week. I do want to send best wishes to Fay Vincent, family of Fay Vincent as well. The commissioner for a very short tenure in the early 90s, but a very impactful tenure in Major League Baseball, passed away over the weekend at the age of 86. He is someone who apparently was sort of a quote machine, someone you were able to talk to about the intricacies of baseball over the intervening decades, forced out of baseball essentially because he did not want to do the owner's bidding. He lost a vote of no confidence led by Bud Selig, basically because he would make inflammatory statements that were like, the owners want this, but it's not right, so I'm not going to do it. And then all the other owners were like, we got to get this guy the fuck out of here. So a man who deserved better, but it's no surprise that his tenure as commissioner of baseball was as short as it was. And when you look at Fay Vincent versus Rob Manfred, it's almost embarrassing, and it's night and day.
Yeah.
Shout out to the games being a little shorter, though. Good job, Manfred. But yeah, Fay Vincent, not someone who catered to ownership. And we know that because he is the commissioner who banned George Steinbrenner from baseball, who has given irrefutable evidence that Steinbrenner was doing something nefarious. Either he was paying $40,000 to a gambler underworld man to get dirt on Dave Winfield, or that kind of person had somehow been invited into his life and was blackmailing it. Like, maybe he didn't actually pay it, but somehow this guy's involved in baseball now. And that's why Pete Rose was banned, because he invited nefarious characters in to, let's say Pete Rose has a gambling debt, and here's a guy with a baseball bat, and all of a sudden, Chris Sabo's not starting anymore, and the Reds have to lose on purpose for a week and a half. It's the same situation with Steinbrenner and the Yankees. It's like, I don't know what this guy's going to do, but we can't have him in the game. And he banned Steinbrenner, who wasn't reinstated until 1993, when, unsurprisingly, Fay Vincent was no longer the commissioner of baseball. And that led to the Yankees holding on to Bernie Williams, specifically, like Gene Michael in charge, doing things that Steinbrenner would never, ever do. Holding on to Bernie Williams, somebody that Gene Michael was a believer in and who Steinbrenner wanted to get rid of. Trading Roberto Kelly for Paul O'Neill, another masterstroke of genius, filling out that roster. Drafting Derek Jeter, although at 6th overall, that's kind of a miracle that you can't really say. Like, Gene Michael, I don't think he bribed anybody to get them to not draft Derek Jeter, but it's not like they were making a choice at number 1. They just got the guy they really wanted at number 6. But still, they hold and develop Pettit. They hold and develop Rivera. They hold and develop Posada. And the Yankees, the last great Yankees dynasty, probably never happens if not for the work of Fay Vincent. So giving a shout out to him for his amazing tenure, way too short tenure, but unsurprisingly short tenure as commissioner. And I don't think there's anything else to really address.
Cool quote from Vincent, because I brushed up a little bit after his passing. You should read more up on baseball history. It's really cool. But
yeah.
After this was an interview from the Associated Press in 2023. He was like reflecting on his very short tenure as commissioner, and he said the commissioner has to look out for fans, and the owners didn't want to hear me speak on that idea, referring to the labor negotiations, because there was a work stoppage during his tenure, and he also outed the owners for previous collusion during free agency in the 80s, which obviously pissed off all the billionaires. And then he continued on and said, I had the conviction that being commissioner was a public trust. I tried to do what I thought was best for the game and the public who cared so much about it. I had mixed results. Sometimes I'm pleased with what I did. The tragedy of baseball is the single biggest thing I left undone was to build a decent relationship between the owners and players. I thought somebody would take over after me and get that done. If I died tomorrow, that would be the big regret, is that the players and the owners still have to make some commitment to each other to be partners and build the game. And look, we see how that is still a problem. There's going to be potentially a work stoppage next year. We've dealt with free agency collusion in some capacity. Obviously not proven, but obvious that guys like Manny Machado and Bryce Harper had to wait as long as they did in the offseason to receive contracts. We're seeing, and I know we know that there's a Scott Boras problem, and that goes hand in hand with the business of baseball and how it needs to be fixed. But it's just a shame. You have a guy like Fay Vincent who was trying to do right in the days before baseball was printing money. Obviously that came the last 25 years. Baseball had started just making money hand over fist in a way that nobody would expect. The largest contracts are in baseball. Don't forget that. So the fact that he was trying to work hard, you would assume for not the 1% of players, the Juan Sotos, the Aaron Judges, who get their massive extensions and $400+ million paydays, but the labor of it all, it goes down to the last guy in the bullpen. And Fay Vincent seemed very passionate about that, but was ousted because he had too rational of, I guess, a point of view on all this. And that's how life works, I guess. So good for him and trying to do what he did during a short time. Depressing for society that it ended this way, and we have to, at least we remember him fondly, but it's more so you're remembering him like, man, what could have been if we had a reasonable guy who was not peddling the interests of billionaires in this industry. So rest in peace, Fay. You tried. We saw it. Everybody else saw it. The billionaires suck.
Lords of the Realm by John Hellier, an older book about the things going on behind the scenes, specifically in the 80s as baseball labor develops. The best book I read last year. So highly recommend. Fay Vincent certainly cameos in that as well. Get that read. Well, thank you for joining us today on Yanks Go Yard podcast. We are here every Monday and Thursday. We're going to be here again on Thursday. Will we get news of the more interesting than Carlos Carrasco variety between today and Thursday's show? I don't know. I don't. Are you going to be watching, just on NFL Network all day this week? Super Bowl props. Is that what people are going to be doing? Are you going to be paying attention to baseball? You in the audience, in the crowd? Like, I don't know where any of you are at this week. It's obviously a fun week in sports. It's a dull week in baseball as we wait for Pete Alonso, who has one team chasing him, and that team is the New York Mets, and he desperately wants to go to the New York Mets. We're waiting for him to sign with the New York Mets. We've been waiting forever. Alex Bregman, the opposite, has like 7 teams that have theoretically been connected to him, and there are 2 6-year offers out there, but he's not any closer to accepting anything now than he was. Remember how inevitable, you want to talk about people who signed bad deals late last year and getting into spring training at the wrong pace and not doing the conditioning they needed to do. Jordan Montgomery, everybody basically agreed he's getting traded this offseason after he opted back in and ownership said, yeah, that was a mistake. Shouldn't have signed that fucking guy. He's still on the Diamondbacks. It's February 3rd. So there's a lot of business still to get done. It's not getting done. And no, I don't want to trade Jordan Montgomery for Marcus Stroman, but I'm definitely going to say it out loud on this podcast in case it happens. So hopefully we get some real needle movers this week, although we're getting closer to the action. Because like I said, Alonso, Bregman, this is what's left. And 50 bullpen guys. David Robertson, all these lefties. You're going to see familiar Kenley Jansen. You're going to see familiar names come off the board, but the heavy lifting is done. Unless somebody wants to make a Luka Doncic trade. What's the MLB equivalent? Like Nolan Arenado to the Yankees? Does that count as a Luka Doncic trade? I don't think it does. But we'll be here to talk about it if it does go down. The comments saying Arenado, good idea. Look, it's a much better idea on February 3rd than it was on December 26th. So yeah, you can convince me. Let's move the needle. But you don't have to move it very far. Just move it a little bit. The Yankees are probably the best team in the American League. If the Astros sign Alex Bregman, then maybe they are. If the Red Sox sign Alex Bregman, then maybe they are. But if Alex Bregman goes to the Cubs or the Phillies and the Mets get Alonso, then the Yankees are the best team in the American League on paper if they don't do anything. But Andrew Friedman last week again reiterated, like Brandon Gomes and the Dodgers, they were like, our goal is to not have to do stuff at the trade deadline. Like, that's why we're doing so much stuff now. If the Dodgers traded for Kirby Yates at the deadline, nobody would be like, oh, that's unfair. I can't believe they traded for an all-star closer. That's what people do. They're saying it's unfair because it's all happening during the offseason when no one else is doing stuff. And the Dodgers are doubling up everyone else's moves. And he's basically like, I don't want to have to trade for a reliever at the deadline. I don't want to have to fill a spot on my roster. Meanwhile, the Yankees are like, we don't have a lefty reliever and we don't have a third baseman, but we do have DJ LeMahieu. And it's totally normal that Marcus Stroman posted a picture of him burning Yankee Stadium to the ground. That's completely normal. So, hey, we'll be back on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Maybe we'll see some movement. All you got to do is add incremental wins. The Yankees are talented as is. Best team in the American League as is. Wouldn't you like to get a little bit better? I would. We'll be here 2 o'clock Eastern. I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Thomas Carannante, where on earth can the people find you on the platform now known as X, the Everything app?
News source, first and foremost, obviously.
Yes.
I'm at Tommy's_takes. We are both at the official Yanks Go Yard account at Yanks Go Yard FS. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not yet. You'll get alerts for when we're going live. Yes, mostly static on Monday and Thursday, but when stuff happens, impromptu, we're popping on. You'll never know. And you gotta stay on top of it. Head on over to yanksgoyard.com. ton of content there for you. We are still keeping everybody informed on what's going on behind the scenes, rumors, speculation, smaller roster moves, smaller minor league moves that you might not be keeping track of. Appreciate you guys reading and taking the time to tune in today. We'll see you all on Thursday.
Sure will.